Hi, this is Annie Grace, and welcome to this Naked Mind podcast. I'm here with Raegan. Welcome, Raegan.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good. So why don't you sort of take me back to the beginning, sort of where it all started for you?
Okay. Yeah, well, I just like I wrote for the blog entry that, you posted on This Naked Mind, I did not grow up in a family where addiction was a problem. I didn't ever see it. Was not around it. And I never thought anything of it. And when I was 13, some school friends came over and gave me my first taste of beer. And I didn't like it. I almost spit it out. It was so horrible. And it stuck with me that I never drank again. Like throughout high school, I never drank, and I was never like really pressured by my friends or anyone to drink. So it was just never an issue. And when I went off to college, I think that entire 4-year period, I drank maybe 10 times, if that. Again, it was never a problem. When I now, after reading your book, look back on it, I see that in grad school, I went straight into grad school right after college. I see that that's kind of when it started to creep up on me a little bit, in the sense that Friday and Saturday nights, I was always going to a friend's house party and, having drinks and so forth. And it became more of a routine, like every Friday and Saturday, but it never interfered with my school or anything like that. I received a scholarship to study abroad at Oxford University in England and did well. So, since I didn't really have a background in alcohol or addiction, I didn't know at the time that it was starting to grow. And then after grad school, I went to work into politics. And it was just normal. And I can really relate to you saying that's kind of how it all really started for you, in the sense that you just drank with your coworkers. It's just what you did. And when, it's the strike of 5, it was totally normal to go down to these, nice fancy bars by the Capitol and have drinks and mingle with lobbyists and mingle with even senators and congressmen. And, at that time, I was 28 years old. I mean, this was 10 years ago. So I kind of had stars in my eyes. Like I write in the blog that you hosted, it was the equivalent of a young person like going to Hollywood and getting their big break who want to, act. That's how I felt. And from there, it kind of started where my roommates in DC, every Sunday night, we would take turns buying a bottle of wine and watching Desperate Housewives. And I never really saw it as a thing because it never interfered with my life. And then fast forward several years, I was attempting to get my PhD in nonprofit management out in the University of San Diego. Didn't end up getting it, but I loved living out there. But my roommate suggested before a date, she said, well, take a few shots, get there first, take a few shots, and we'll relax you. And I was like, okay. And so it started to grow from there. I started to, not realizing it, in my subconscious, I was starting to think that's what you just, alcohol takes care of things. And so I just started to do that. And then fast forward another 3 years, I moved back east, and I was going to go back and work in DC again. And what ended up happening was, it's a little difficult to talk about, but I ended up being attacked by somebody I was supposed to trust. And after that, my drinking went from, a nightly thing where I thought it was helping me fall asleep, which I now know it wasn't. But it went from being something I just did at night to go to sleep to being something I did. It didn't matter at the time of day because I was thinking that it was helping me. I don't know why I was thinking that, other than in the sense that my goal was to pass out and not think, not feel. And that's what it was doing. So I just started to rely on it for, I guess, just getting through the day. And it was so out of control that I ended up going to a treatment center. And it didn't really do anything to help me, because I didn't feel like it was addressing kind of the reason why I started and all that. It was just basically they, do the 12 steps and all that. And I want to come across as like, I'm not bashing treatment centers, I'm not bashing AA. I think it's great. It's helped a lot of people, but it just didn't help me. Not at all. I ended up blowing a .370
Wow.
on two occasions, and I'm 5'4" and 110 pounds. That's enough to
So
kill a
that's
horse.
like 6 times the legal limit, I think, or something crazy
It's
like.
crazy. Yeah, insane. And still nothing was registering with me. It just wasn't working. And about a year ago, one treatment center didn't help. The second one helped a bit more because I was dealing with EMDR, which is special kind of trauma. And so I always had it in the back of my mind, I go back to, regular drinking. And then by coincidence, I read your book, and it kind of talked about, how, I saw an ad for it. And I was thinking, okay, if the traditional route hasn't helped me, maybe this more scientific approach will. And when I started reading your book, I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to just cut back. I'm still going to drink. And then when I finished it, my whole mindset changed completely. And I don't even miss it.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's just awesome. So what has life been like sort of since that?
It's been amazing. I can't believe, I'm very thankful that the real out of control drinking was less than a year of my life. So I'm grateful that, I didn't lose decades, and I could have. But it just simple things like I was talking to my mother the other day, and she was stunned when I told her, 2 years ago at 6:00 in the morning, my first thought was, oh, the gas station's open now. I can run and get a six pack. That was my first thought. And then last year, my dog woke me up like right before, dawn, and I had to go out. And my first thought was, oh, we'll make it in time to see the sunrise. And I was like, wow, that's
Oh,
how much my mind has changed. Like, it's
so cool.
crazy. Yeah.
And what was it in the book? Like, what was it that really, do you think clicked for you?
I think what clicked, well, the whole book clicked, but what mostly got me was the whole willpower and the whole, honestly, the subconscious and the conscious part where you talked about that over and over again, because that's really what made me think, oh, I was relying on this for everything. Even little things like as it started to grow, when I was out in California, out west, the water is much colder than it is, on the Atlantic. And my friends and I would always be like, let's go take shots and jump in the water. And that will, get us ready. So I was subconsciously starting to think I needed it for everything. And, now I live in Florida, and, even in the winter, it's still a little cold, but I can easily, run and jump in without drinking. So that was the biggest thing for me.
That's
in the book.
huge. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like just this idea, there's so many things like that we think we need alcohol to do this certain thing. And then when we prove ourselves wrong, it's like, holy cow, that was in me all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and then your book inspired my own. And it's funny because I've been talking about, I'm a writer. This is my third book. The first two I published were on Russian history. So I just sat down one day and just wrote and wrote and wrote. And we're hoping it will be July that it comes out. But mine's more kind of like historical in space, whereas your scientific approach is what helped me for sure. But mine's more historical in the sense like I look back throughout history and kind of how people became addicted and so forth. So yeah, and I
That
thank
is
you
so
and the
exciting.
acknowledgments.
So what is it called, first of all?
Death in the Afternoon: How to Control Drinking in the 21st Century.
Oh, that's so exciting. And where can people, will just, I assume, be on Amazon, or is there anywhere specifically for people to go?
It will be on Amazon, yeah, and we're looking for a July launch date.
That's
So,
awesome.
it'll,
Yeah,
yeah,
this podcast probably will come out after launch anyway, so people can probably go find it right now. So that's really exciting.
yeah. Well, the pre-order actually isn't up yet, but I'll keep you posted on that because I would love for you to, like, when you do this, maybe to have it on launch day or so forth,
Yeah, that
if
would
we
be
can work
great.
that out.
I'm really looking forward to that. That's so cool. And it's so fascinating too, because it's like, where did this all come from? What's the historical thing? So what a good approach and what a good topic. That's just great. How fascinating. So
Hmm.
how kind of your social life and your friends and stuff, how's that changed?
It hasn't really changed for the worse. I even write about that in the book, how I'm one of the lucky ones, I think, because my drinking was so out of control, that my friends and family have all been extremely supportive. But I've noticed through other friends that who I've, referenced your book to, and they read it and it changed them too. Like, their friends were being like still pressuring them and so forth. So I haven't had to deal with that, thank God. But I know that has to a
Good.
lot of people. But yeah, so.
That's great. So what else, like, if you were going to give just kind of top tips to somebody, especially, knowing the journey of how many different roads you went down,
Hmm.
do you have any top tips, I guess?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little. Any what?
Sort of top tips or like,
Um, top tips definitely. What also helps me about the book is realizing what it does to your health, because I'm a health nut. And I think a top tip is definitely letting people know that, and this is another thing that really stood out to me in your book was, this is ethanol. This is literally a poison. And I think if people remember that when they go out and so forth, they might be less inclined to drink.
mm,
Um, because it's so crazy how it's just such a natural thing. Like, the other day, I went to a Mexican restaurant to pick up, some food, bring back home. And as I'm sitting there, I, had a virgin margarita, which was great. I could actually taste the strawberry, and it wasn't, clouded by alcohol. And I looked around and I noticed, and this was like noon, I noticed that in this packed restaurant, every table, there was somebody drinking, if not the whole table. And
mm,
I was like, and I wouldn't have noticed that before. And I was just thinking to myself, these people have no idea what they're doing to their bodies. No clue. Because I didn't know. And in a way, I almost feel sorry for them.
mhm.
You know, it's, yeah.
I know, I remember that feeling too so well. And I think, I mean, still sometimes we have actually a really random Mexican restaurant near us where it has great food, but it's in a gas station because we live in the mountains. So like there's not a lot of buildings. So like people have to put restaurants and like gas stations, and it's just hilarious that way. But anyway, it's kind of in this gas station on the highway. So
Mhm.
it's a good 6 or 7 minute drive from anything else. So like no matter what you're driving, even if you live in the closest house you're driving, you're getting in your car and getting on a highway. And
Mhm.
there's a huge 7 foot poster outside of it with a big Corona, and it says, "We have breakfast burritos. Pick one up with a Corona today, and there's a special on your breakfast burrito and your Corona." And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Your
I know.
breakfast burrito and your Corona? That's a thing? Crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. And, I think honestly, the toughest thing that has been for me, sobriety is not tough. It's amazingly easy. And like I said, this is coming from someone who, blew a deadly amount twice. Um, so, that's been fine. What's been hard has been kind of the backlash I've gotten from people who did, become sober the traditional way by doing AA and the 12 steps. It's like they don't believe me when I say I didn't. And I always say, I think it's a great program. I think these treatment centers are awesome. I'm always, saying, hey, if that works for people, that's great. I'm not discouraging it. But, it doesn't work for other people. It doesn't work for everyone. And yeah, just kind of getting backlash about that. It's been kind of surprising because, in my opinion, it doesn't matter how you come sober as long as you are.
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing for me when I first published This Naked Mind, because I came at this whole thing not even knowing the vernacular. You know, it was very much my own journey. It was very internal. Everything I knew about AA, I'd learned from my brother who had spent some time in prison. So it was completely like, I just did not know what I didn't know. And so when I actually got pushback from people really saying that, hey, it's dangerous to suggest that there's another way.
Yeah.
Somebody tell me that you're going to be killing people if you tell them they don't need meetings. And I had more than one person tell me similar things to that. I was really surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, like, wait, I thought we were on the same team. I thought these were going to be my people. And it was kind of this moment of like, wow, I stopped drinking and I thought I'd be really kindred with people who are sober in recovery. And I wasn't kindred. And I was like, okay, so I'm not on that island and I'm not on the drinking island. So, okay, whoa, where am I? I guess I'm on my own island. It was just this very surreal experience. And I think I've had to do a lot of work on my own, thinking about it and moving through and really trying to understand, you know, why that is. And I had this beautiful, beautiful conversation with Laura McCowan. She's a blogger and stuff. And she said, Annie, the thing about it, because I've never ever said that one way is better or worse or anything. It's just like, here's what worked for me. You know, that's really the drum I'm beating. And lots of people actually do go to AA meetings and read This Naked Mind and find the combination really powerful. And so it's, I think it's all great and it's all beautiful. And it totally, everybody's journey is everybody's journey. We're so many different shades of people. We need so many different shades of, you know, who's going to connect with me might not connect with somebody else, and who's going to connect with somebody else might never connect with me. It's just, it is what it is. But she said the thing that happens is when somebody's really built their whole construct of sobriety on this way being the way, and then you suggest that it might not be, and their sobriety for them is like their survival, which totally makes sense, because when you're in a situation where literally you cannot stop drinking and then finally you string a few days together and it's such a relief, but it's so hard and it's so intense, and then you string time together, and if anything comes in to suggest that, you know, what, that foundation might not be the only thing, it almost takes away from it, and it can become really scary. And she says that all that is just very fear-based. And so it's really about them, not about you. And that really helped me a lot, because I was like, okay, it's not that I'm necessarily being attacked. It's that there's a really deep fear that, okay, if there is something else that works, then maybe I got it wrong. And what does that mean? And maybe I'm not going to, you know, maintain my, like it, there's just all this, you know, fear. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. But I totally agree with you that, you know, it does not, like, we're all in this together really. And I think more and more people are just finding their own paths and their own ways. But it was very surprising. And I think it is really interesting for that you had that experience as well of, you know, just not feeling like, oh, we're on the same team here, feeling like, wait a second, you're actually upset with how I did this. And I did have people say things like, okay, well, when you need us, we'll be here. You know, when that doesn't work for you, we've always got a space for you here. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you. That's very nice. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you saying that, you know, it's not you, it's, you know, their fear, that really helps me understand it a bit more, because I really didn't understand. I didn't understand. And, you know, I've said the therapists I saw before, everything, all the treatments, I'm not bashing them. I think they're great. They all, you know, did their best for me, and it just didn't work for me. And if it works for the next person, that's great. But, you know, I went down, and I'm very thankful that one therapist I had a year ago, right before I read your book, started seeing her, and I saw her throughout 2018. Right when I first started seeing her, I was like, you know, twice I've blown a 0.370 or higher. Clearly this, you know, this program is not working for me. I need to find another way. And she was the first person who ever told me. She goes, yeah, well, I'm a huge advocate of people finding their own way. And I was stunned. I was like, really? I mean, you're an addiction therapist. You're saying it's okay if the 12 steps don't work for me? She's like, yeah, that's fine. I was just amazed. So Yeah. And when I went back down to Florida, and I decided, why don't I go into a sober living just because I'm new to this area? I don't want to sign a lease. I know I'm not going to drink. So I kind of looked at it from the point of view where I didn't want to sign a lease of an apartment until I got to know where I wanted to live. So I was like, I'll just go into sober living and, do that, because you can leave anytime. And when I went down there, they, were saying that you have to do meetings every day. You have to do this. And when I was down there and signing, not the lease, but, just a contract and so forth, I said, well, I didn't get sober that way. And meetings don't do anything for me. And they said, well, if you want to stay here, you have to go. So I didn't think too much of it. I was like, all right, whatever, I'll go. And I was sitting through these meetings, and I'm like, to me, the whole shame approach just doesn't work. And not for me, at least. And so when to me, it was almost like they were taking me 10 steps back. So after 4 months, I was like, look, I'm going to leave, because I don't, it doesn't work for me. And I don't see what the problem is. As long as I'm sober, I'm passing all my tests, I'm doing well, I've written a book. I don't see what the problem is, like why I have to do something I said doesn't work for me. And it was just, just like I was this black sheep or something. So, so that was really the only difficult part. And even now, like the first treatment center I went to, like on Facebook, when I, post stuff about like how your book worked and how the scientific background works for me. And like only a couple people from my times in these treatment centers have been happy for me. All the others are like thinking I'm out of my mind and so forth. So, yeah.
I think it's really hard for people to, it's hard for me to have an idea about something and then have somebody not be in the quote norm, right? And then be like, okay, how does that fit? And I think that we have this very deep desire. I think it's one of the things that our brains do to almost protect ourselves is we try to prove whatever we know from our past correct. And we try to disallow new information because it feels scary and contrary and different. And so it's really hard to do that. And so when we're trying to prove whatever we've seen from our past correct and something comes in that is like new, and it's like, okay, here's Raegan. Raegan actually is doing great, but Raegan didn't do all the steps that we thought she should do. And she hasn't done, the specific formula that we've put forward. Raegan must be wrong, because otherwise, how can we take that in? It's just too much. So it's really interesting, like just the brain works like that in so many areas, but I completely understand. And I'm so glad that you did find something that works for you, because I think that we are all so different and differently wired. And we all really do deserve to be able to live in complete freedom from this.
Yeah. And like, I tell people all the time that this is like, and I'm keeping my emotions in check because, there are times when I just burst out into tears when I think, if I hadn't read The Naked Mind, I am 1000% convinced that I probably wouldn't be here right now. If I was able to blow numbers like that before, I think it would have been at one point when it got to be too much. And like, I give you 1000% credit for, in my opinion, saving my life.
Oh.
So.
Well, you definitely are the one. I know that the information helped, but it's inside you, that desire to live, that will to live, that need to keep looking for the next thing and the right thing that did finally click, and not giving up when things didn't click. And I mean, that's just really amazing. Like that thing that's in all of us that just wants what's better. And I do have a belief, and who knows if this is true, who knows if this is woo-woo, but it's what I choose to believe, because I think that I've seen it to be very true, that when we do make even the smallest sort of internal decision and commitment, that we're like, okay, somehow when we start on the journey, often just starting on the journey almost ensures that we will get where we want to go, and it's not always true for every person, but a lot of times when you just start on it, it's like everything conspires to make it happen for us, you know, and then even if we have to go down this road and this road and this road, we're learning something in each of those detours and each of those turns that ultimately, like, it's like giving my
Mhm.
husband a jar of pickles and being like, I can't open this. This is impossible. And then he tries it for a while and he's like, oh, I don't know. It's really hard. And then I pick it up and I open it because he's loosened it for me. You know, it's like almost everything in your path probably had some sort of place and some sort of thing to where, oh, all of a sudden this is the thing that really put everything over the edge. But I think that all goes back down to some very deep internal desire that, okay, I want something different for myself, even if that's unspoken and subconscious, like you making that choice, you putting that real intention into the world, I think is what ultimately results in all of this.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point of view. That's definitely something, and I can see that. Yeah, the desire to live, the desire to, be able to continue with my life because I've led a very good life, and I feel like I'm a pretty intelligent person. I've done all this good, and I want to keep going, and so yeah, it's definitely nice to hear that, saying that maybe the strength was always in me, because I really didn't look at it from that point of view.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's very true. It doesn't always feel that way. It certainly doesn't in the journey. I can tell you that even in my journey. And you can look back and be like, oh, it all happened for a reason, but it never feels that way at the moment.
mhm.
So I'll
Right.
ask you sort of what I always ask, in that, if you could go back to Raegan, who was really struggling and blowing those crazy numbers and at a point where it was scary, where it was life or death, and just tell her about, and I'm sure she was so fearful, tell her about what life is like now. What would you tell her?
I would tell her that you'll be amazed at how much you can go back to the person you were before times 100,
Mm,
and that you can enjoy simple pleasures again. And I live near these botanical gardens, and these little events they have, I get so excited about that. I don't need alcohol, and it's just amazing. It's amazing to like walk at night or jog, which I'm a huge jogger, and listening to the crickets and realizing I lost a year. I don't remember a year of my life. That could have been forever, and I'm just so grateful it wasn't.
that's so beautiful. That's so cool. That's great. Well, wow, what a powerful story. I am working on I don't know if anybody told you this over email when you submitted your blog post, but I'm working on an actual putting all these stories, or a lot of the best stories, the one that are, I think, some of the most compelling, together into a book
Hmm.
that I'm going to give away for free on my website, but then also put on Amazon. And I'd love to share your story in that. So you can think about it and let me know or whatever. But I think your story is really powerful, especially as you did try so many traditional methods first and you have gotten the pushback and stuff. And I think that's got to resonate with a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people in a similar situation, and maybe who are still in some methods that aren't working for them and feeling very hopeless.
Yes. Well, I actually did get that email, and I confirmed on the spot. I was
Yay.
like, absolutely, you can share this. And I said, I'm honored and humbled that she would even consider me.
Oh, that's so great.
So, yeah,
That's such a good
yeah.
story. That's really
Mhm.
cool. Was there anything else that's on your mind?
I guess just that I'm every time I go around and I'm, promoting my book on podcasts and radio, I'm really also promoting this naked mind, because when people ask me, how you got sober, because I go on radio stations and so forth that they do believe in different routes. And so when I tell them, I'm like, hey, it was this book. It was 1000% this book. And it's definitely um, changed my life, or not changed my life, brought me back to who I was
Oh,
and made me a better person. So,
I love that so much. And I honestly cannot wait to read your book. Will you tell us the title one more time, just in case anybody missed it?
sure, it's called Death in the Afternoon: How to Control Drinking in the 21st Century.
That's so cool. So Death in the Afternoon, How to Control Drinking in the 21st Century. It's just awesome.
Yeah, not to be confused with Ernest Hemingway's book called Death in the Afternoon. I actually named the book after a drink he invented called Death in the Afternoon. And he, as a writer, I look up to writers, and I kind of wanted it as a tribute to him because as a lot of people know, he suffered from all this and so forth and never got better. And it's sad. So.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. That's just so cool. That's awesome.
You.
Well, thank you so much, Raegan. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. So it was an honor to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Hi, are you looking to connect with like-minded people? Sometimes maybe you feel like, as someone who knows all this information from This Naked Mind or the alcohol experiment, that you're living in a world of muggles and people just don't speak your language. That is why I created The Exchange. The Exchange is an online community where we meet face-to-face, live video calls multiple times a week with people from all over the globe just to connect, to have somewhere you're seen and you're heard and you feel less alone, and really that you can give back and get the support you need. So if this sounds great to you, check it out at thisnakedmind.com/exchange. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.